Okay, today's lesson is just about outliers, and basically an outlier is a score that's, an anomaly, like it's a bit big or a bit small, and it doesn't match the rest of the data, and you can sense that these outliers are there, but we need a mathematical way to be able to justify what we're going to say is an outlier or not. And in this course, we're going to use this method where we say you're only allowed to be a certain distance above the upper quartile or below the lower quartile if you're going to be included in the actual run-of-the-mill data, otherwise you're an outlier. And that distance is 1.5 times the inner quartile range. So just as a quick picture of it, like that might be a box from a box and whisker plot, right? That's Q1 there and that's Q3 there. And we know that the inner quartile range is that amount there. Now we're saying that you can't be more than 1.5 of those box widths above or below. So, here's one lot of the box width is about that long, right, to there, and then another half to about there. That would be the maximum you're allowed to get up to. If there's a score further up, it's an outlier. And same with this, that'd be about one box width down, so up to there, and then about another half a box width. That might be as far down as you're allowed. 1.5 box widths from Q1 downwards. So any scores out this way, you put across because they're outliers. So whiskers can only extend to the maximum or minimum score that's not an outlier. So we'll get to that in a minute. And outliers should be marked with a cross if they fit on the plot. So let's have a look at this example here where 9max completed this task, and here's the results they got. First thing we're going to do is find the 5-number summary basically, all right? So we know that the minimum score is 5 and the maximum score is 91. We can see that from the data. Now, the data's all lined up from smallest to biggest. So there's a 40 in the middle and a 40 in the middle. There's 2 scores in the middle that are 40s. Around that mark, I've got a 29, a 35 and a 40 on that top line. And then the next line down, I've got a 40 and a 42 and a 43, right? So, when we're trying to find the median, we actually land there with the 40 that's at the end of the first line and the 40 that's at the beginning of the second line. So you add those two up and divide by 2, and of course you get 40. But that's basically in between those 2 bits of data. So the median, Q2, is equal to 40. When you work out the lower quartile, you take that whole of that top group there, and you can see that 20 is in the middle of it. So the lower quartile is 20. And you take that top group and find what's in the middle of that. And the answer is 48. So that's Q3. So the inner quartile range is Q3 minus Q1, the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. 48 minus 20, it's 28. Now that's important to know the inner quartile range because you're allowed to be 1.5 times the inner quartile range. You're allowed to be 1.5 times that below Q1, right? So Q1, take off that, is as far down as you're allowed to go. Now, what is Q1? Instead of writing Q1, I'll write the actual number in. So what is Q1? Q1 is 20. So you would be allowed to be 20 minus 1.5 times 28. Well, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant for this set of data because it's negative 22 that you're allowed to be, and of course, no data's down in the negatives. So that number 5, that's our minimum bit of data, that's cool. That's not an outlier. That's as far down as it goes. But going above, you're allowed to be 1.5 times the inner quartile range, right, which is 28, above the upper quartile, which is 48. right? Q3 plus 1.5 times the inner quartile range. So 48 plus 1.5 times the inner quartile range is 90. You're only allowed to go up to 90. Otherwise, you're an outlier. So look at that. 91 is an outlier. Now, what's the next highest score then? Yeah, 60. So your whisker is only able to go up to 60, and 91 is going to be a cross on your diagram. All right. So say here's your diagram. Let's label this up. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. 91 is going to be a cross on there, because you're only allowed to go to 90 according to the outlier rule. Now, what's Q1 20, Q2 40, and Q3 48? Q1 20, Q2 40, and 48. So there's your box. And your whisker that goes upwards is only allowed to go to the maximum score that's allowable. Since 90 is the biggest you can be, we can't use 91, so the next highest was 60. And the lowest score was 5, so we are allowed to go down to 5. So there's your box and whisker plot there. You can see your outlier just being with a cross put on it there. All right, so good luck with those practice exercises.